Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Talking Wolves transfer podcast. A week on from last week's podcast, and thankfully, the rumours have hotted up a little bit more, and it looks like Wolves are set to make at least one more transfer in the next few days or so. Delighted to be alongside Joe from Concept Scouting once again. Joe, how you been keeping?
All good, mate. Yeah, all good. Nice to see everything ramping up a little bit, at least, slowly, last 24 hours or so. But yeah, I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. A little bit more positivity on the timeline. I think after Wednesday's result, it was a little bit doom and gloom, wasn't it? And I think we needed some good news because going into Girona, who again, it's going to be a tough game for Wolves. I think a negative result there and no positive news other than that. It could have been a nasty, nasty place on Wolves social media. But yeah, we've had some good news. We've had loads of questions as well. I just put out a quick post before we click record, and there's been loads of questions come through, so I appreciate that as well. But yeah, as always, we'll get into it. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating, of course. And if you want to look at the scout cards that we discussed today, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see them on the screen anyway. But Joe, we had the positive news yesterday about, I mean, it's probably one of the best names that we've had in recent years, David Müller-Woller. It's almost perfect. You know, you've unfortunately Bobby Charlton never played for Charlton. David Villa never played for Aston Villa. Danny Shitu never played for West Brom. We
Oh,
get David Muller.
he's prepped that one. He's prepped
Yeah,
that
there
one.
we go. As if, that's like a year 7 joke that I used to make years ago.
Love that one.
David Muller-Wolfe coming from AZ Alkmaar in and around, I think with the add-ons, just over £11 million, dubbed the Ryan Aït-Nouri replacement. Immediate thoughts on this one, Joe?
I was actually on a Twitter space with Ryan last night as it came through, and as I was wrapped up in a kind of ball of negativity, with Ryan and Tyler from on Twitter. So obviously we were. I was trying to. I think people know I'm fairly positive, same as you. I think we're probably on the
Yeah.
positive side of the spectrum. And I think even when that signing, even just the kind of whisper of it came through, you can kind of sense everyone lifting a little bit. I do think
Yeah.
I do think even as like the more optimistic fans in the fan base like me and you, I think even yesterday afternoon or throughout this week, the longer it's kind of gone in, you expected something to develop in the week, and it just didn't. Nothing came out. There was no real significant links of any kind of significance, especially off the back of the Pubel debacle, which I think we spoke about
Yeah.
last week. But the, the for me, I think with this potential signing, I'm going to always caveat that now, just in the event that he suddenly gets a phone call from George Mendes or Atletico Madrid on his flight. But I think it's a really good sign. I think it's a guy that is defensively as good as he is offensively. I think he's the amount of times he gets into the box, the amount of times he gets up the wing. I think he's a winger with the ball, and he is a left
Mhm.
back without the ball, which I think is what you want. I think maybe even Nori didn't quite have that in his locker. I think he could quite easily lock himself down at left back for 90 minutes if we're under the cosh. But you wouldn't necessarily find him getting forward as well in a way that maybe
Mhm.
Rodrigo Gomez does, just with the kind of engine that he's got. So um, Müller-Woller, who I'm told is the pronunciation, Müller-Woller is definitely, I think he's been linked with bigger clubs and AZ Alkmaar. No offense, any AZ Alkmaar fans on listening, but bigger clubs than them, and probably than us. Clubs who are playing in Europe. AZ are in Europe, I believe, at least in the qualifying stages at the moment. So there was potential for him to be playing in Europe. I dare say any of the clubs that would have been involved in or interested in him would have been as well. So I know as Wolves fans, we think we should be signing the best players in the world, but this is a very good level of player to be joining us.
Yeah, apparently, well, according to Fabrizio Romano, he beat Lille, I think, to his signature. They were another team pretty strongly linked. This is the best type of transfer, though, Joe, isn't it? I mean, we were linked with him some weeks ago, very, very sort of small link, and it wasn't from a very reputable source at the time, but just comes out of nowhere, deal agreed, no build up, medical being done today, happy days. And I think that's when there's all the speculation, there's a lot of negativity sometimes that comes with it. You think, oh, it's just agent led, oh, he's going to go to Lille or this, and this. It's just nice to have a deal. There you go, finished, and just doesn't have any build up to it. we've got the scout card on the screen now, Joe. Starting off in the top left, the archetype fit, probably as you would expect with us having him as a left wing back, very much more of an attacking overlapper, box to box full back. That's the type of player that you would expect to have to replace Ryan Aït-Nouri.
Yeah, I think statistically his output's very similar to Aït-Nouri, in the way that Semedo's was almost obviously more defensively led. Ryan Aït-Nouri was an offensive wing back, and Müller-Woller is that kind of player, and I think that can complement the likes of John Arias. It can complement the likes of Marshall Renetzi in different ways. If they're playing with him, I think you can expect that Joe Gomez and Andre can perform the role of two kind of sit-in number sixes almost, if they've got wing backs that can get forward. We'll come on to that, I'm sure, but in terms of the midfield setup, but I think the style of him as a setup and as a kind of technique, and in terms of a comparison, I'd compare him to Andy Robertson in a way. He's that kind of player, and when he plays, I'm sure people will see a bit of a likeness with Andy Robertson. The way he gets forward, he's a little bit of a shithouse in a way. There's quite a few clips that I've seen of him where he's getting the crowd going, or he's getting opposition players going, which I think we've said before we need a bit of. He's got obviously the link with Jürgen Strand Larsen as well, which I think is important, pending Jürgen Strand Larsen obviously staying with us, which we'll come on to. But yeah, he's definitely an attacking wing back, but I would argue he's a better defender than Aït-Nouri, albeit I don't think Aït-Nouri was a poor defender at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, looking at other areas, his performance, pizza, top end for accelerations, progressive runs, touches in the box, which is an interesting one. Obviously, I think with Wolves, especially after I've seen over the last few weeks, we've almost struggled to create those chances or struggled to look like we were going to be scoring goals. I think if you add your left wing back getting into those advanced areas, it certainly helps a lot. And then bottom left, looking at his percentile profile, there's some really good areas there, Joe, to show that he's got the capability to potentially, replace what Ryan Aït-Nouri gave us last year. And not to forget as well, obviously he was Milos Kerkez's replacement at AZ Alkmaar as well. So potentially long term, it's a similar sort of player that you potentially could be getting.
And by all accounts, reading on social media and online, there's more of a hoo-ha about Müller-Woller leaving than there was about Kerkez leaving. And I think that there are similarities there in the same way. There's a kind of connection when you think, I can see some Andy Robertson in him, but obviously Milos Kerkez is ultimately replaced Andy Robertson at Liverpool. So there's definitely a kind of type of left wing back there. I think the one point about touches in the box, one thing that I was and am, and having watched you talk with the kind of Fenerbahce guys on the channel earlier today, which was interesting in itself. Obviously that we're all big fans.
Like my posh English voice, by the way.
It. Yeah. It was like the reverse Joey Barton in France type approach. Yeah. But I think one thing that everyone could fairly level at Semedo was you rarely, if ever, saw him in the box. You rarely saw him getting to the byline and cutting the ball back. It wasn't really his game. He would move centrally and he'd support that right winger. When we were talking, if it was Pedro Neto, he'd be looking inside as an option from Pedro Neto, or if it was Pablo Sarabia, he would be creating passing angles with them, which is really good. But it was never Semedo playing that game was never going to be a 7, 8, 9 assist a season player. Whereas I think with Ryan Aït-Nouri, you would see him get up the pitch. Again, you'd see him centrally almost, but you'd see him further up the pitch. And I think he's got that ability to kind of beat 2 or 3 players and do something with it. I think Müller-Woller isn't like either of them in that respect. He likes, you can see from the accelerations, he likes to beat a man, he likes to get up the pitch, link with players, get to the byline. Not necessarily kind of flooding the box with crosses, because his stats don't paint that picture, but he gets up and he's looking for a pass, and he's an intricate player around the box. There's a lot of, and I'm sure people would have seen the compilations with him. If you watch him in a game, he gets into the final third and he stays there. He's playing 1-2s with players. He's trying to create openings on the edge of the box, and I think that's something that we've maybe struggled with recently. When we get in and around the penalty box, we never really had anybody who can maybe find that pass. I think Aït-Nouri was probably that man. So I think to replace that, I think it's all positive for me in that regard.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to have a wing back as well. And obviously, I'm not sure if Müller-Woller will bring that or the right wing back we talk about in a minute, or obviously future players that are linked with someone that I was never convinced. Even so much with Aït-Nouri, if there was like a chance or a shooting opportunity in and around the area, if it fell to Aït-Nouri or Semedo, I was never convinced that we were going to get anything come off it. You flip that like
No,
Doc in that Europa League season. If he had the ball on the edge of the box, I was confident that he was going to at least test the goalkeeper. Whereas I don't know what it was with Semedo and even Aït-Nouri. It just never seemed like they were going to hit the ball clean enough to test the keeper.
yeah, I think you see it with Aït-Nouri with his crossing without, I don't want to disrespect him, his left, but his crossing is absolutely awful when it comes to actually getting the ball in the box. And someone like Hugo Bueno is a much better crosser and a much better passer of the ball than Aït-Nouri is. But Aït-Nouri has that
It has a bit
magic.
more whip to it, like a bit more, almost
Yeah,
like there's a bit more meaning to it.
I think there's a bit more kind of execution on it, and there's a bit more
Yeah,
of
that's what it was.
a plan. And that was the case for Semedo as well. Really, neither of
Yeah,
them were
I
like
agree.
serial crossers. But you've got to have that touch around the box where Aït-Nouri with the ball at his feet, incredible. Probably
Mhm.
nobody better, I don't think, who will football as a wing back or a full back with the ball at his feet, carrying the ball, beating a man, you know, creating opportunities for other people. But as a crossing balls into the box, that pass in the final third, there was just always something missing there, which I'm sure no doubt knows at Man City that will miraculously change. But I think Müller-Woller, having watched quite a bit of him actually, I think we'll see an improvement in that.
Yeah, no, definitely. One of the questions, I'm sure there was a couple of lads that asked these questions as well. For me now, what does this mean for Hugo Bueno and or Rodrigo Gomez? I think Liam Keane. I remember when the sort of there was still a little bit of speculation about Hugo's future, even when Ryan Aït-Nouri was still at the club, and it seemed like Hugo wanted long term, like a long term plan and to guarantee minutes basically. And Liam again put in his article yesterday about this transfer, saying now the future of Hugo Bueno is it's still up in the air. I'll bring Rodrigo Gomez into it as well, Joe, because they're still actively looking for a right wing back, and I think we spoke about it last week as well. Rodrigo somewhere is going to be on the left wing back or right wing back, but if Wolves are still actively looking to strengthen these positions, the minutes of both of those are going to be limited.
Yeah, they are, and I think it's a shame for Rodrigo Gomez 'cause I think he's good enough. And I've said before, I wouldn't have had a major issue with Rodrigo Gomez being our starting left wing back. I know some people did, but I wouldn't have had any huge issue with it. Cause I think you know what you're getting from him, and you're getting a player who plays with his heart on his sleeve, gives everything. He's got an engine. I just think maybe there is definitely an element where Vitor doesn't necessarily fancy him. I think that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the advantage that Rodrigo Gomez has is he can play both sides, and I think he's maybe been prepped for playing in that 10 position at some point, even if he's playing a little
Yeah,
bit wider. I still think he's an option across the pitch, if I'm honest. So I don't. I think it's probably looking like curtains for Hugo Bueno, purely from the fact that his value is probably higher than it's ever been, given the loan that he had last season playing the Champions League with Feyenoord. So I think we can get a decent fee. I don't know what his contract looks like, but I don't think he's got like 12 months left on his deal. So um, we can't afford to keep, you know, Hoover, Gomez, Müller-Woller, um, and Hugo Bueno in the squad as options with another wing back likely to come in. They've already said that they're looking for a right wing back, so even if it's not Juanlu Sanchez, it'll be someone else, you would think. So uh, I think Rodrigo Gomez definitely has a future. Unfortunately, I don't think Hugo Bueno does, and I do like him, but I do wonder whether he's of the necessary level.
do you think they might? It's a weird one because Hugo's homegrown and homegrown at club as well. Wolves had zero of those players in the squad last season.
Mm.
Other than obviously younger players, Mateus Mane. Well, even he wouldn't have counted at this point because I don't think he's had enough years at the club. But
He's not
Wolves had
accrued the years,
zero.
no.
Yeah, zero homegrown at club players. So of course it'd be nice to have it, but I mean, what do you think the situation could be? Say September the 1st, you reckon we could be in a position where Müller-Woller and Rodrigo Gomez are your left backs, and then a new right wing back, and someone like Pedro Lima or Keanu Hoover are your right wing back options, maybe?
Uh, Looking at it high level, I think Pedro Lima will get a loan. I think
Yeah,
Vitor will want Keanu Hoover around the squad because I think he probably wants to see him develop through the season or at least until January. So I think our right wing backs will be Keanu Hoover plus whoever we
a new
recruit.
one.
Will come on to that.
Yeah,
Saying that I think Rodrigo Gomez will play. I do think he'll be an option, but the homegrown quota definitely comes into it. I don't. My issue with Hugo Bueno is I'm not sure whether he's going to want to sit on the bench for Wolves when he's been playing regularly in the Eredivisie and in the Champions League for Feyenoord. Would Wolves want to let him go at this point while his value's high? I would imagine so.
there's no guarantee, by the way, to say that he's going to be second choice to Wolfe. I mean, you assume because you're signing a new left back, he probably will be, but with Wolfe coming in so late, he's only going to have one pre-season friendly. There's a chance that Hugo starts against City, for
Yeah.
argument's
And
sake.
to be honest, I haven't got an overt issue with that, and I'm on the fence with Hugo Bueno. If I'm honest, I still need to see him play in this system as we do with all these players.
I agree.
He had a good season for Feyenoord. I think playing in inverted commas better team, you could see something completely different from him. And I think Rodrigo Gomez has been linked at times with a move to Portugal, whether that's permanently or on loan.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be against a loan for Rodrigo Gomez if I'm honest, because I think we signed him last year, presumably on a 4 or 5 year contract, so he's still got years on his deal. I think is he ready to play every week in the Premier League? Probably not, but I do think he's an option. So, um, what's to lose by retaining him, sending him out on loan, and getting him kind of games, whether that's a Porto or a Benfica or a Sporting, which I think it would be. I think he's at that level, playing in Europe, playing regularly, playing week in week out. I can see that happening. I don't really want it to happen, but I can see it. And I don't think it's the worst thing for him either. I'm sure he'd be up for that, going to play for one of the top three in Portugal.
if he gets the game time, I think there would be. I can envisage a meltdown, but I think he needs game time, and I think people need to appreciate
I
that
think
as well.
you'd see an element of a meltdown with any of the four. So any of Bueno, Gomez, Lima, or Hoover going. A large sway of the Wolves fans will have an issue with each of them leaving for one reason or
Yeah,
another. No, I don't think it's justified, and I think at least two of them will leave, even if it's just temporarily, because we've gone from kind of being in a position where we've only really got two competent wing backs in Semedo and Aït-Nouri, notwithstanding the fact that Totti can apparently play left wing back, which I'm not necessarily on board with. And
respect
obviously,
Lopetegui ball, man.
yeah, but obviously Hoover wasn't really an option in the last 2 years. He's come back and
Yeah,
looks like he's more of the level. Lima, I don't think he's quite ready. I think he will be. I think he'll be top wing back, but I don't think he's there yet. But the fact that we're awash with all these fullbacks and wing backs now, we've got to get some of them off the squad at least for this season, because we can't carry all of them.
yeah, no, I agree. We'll move on to a player that has been heavily linked as of today, as of Friday. Wolves have had very strong links with the Spanish right back, Juanlu Sanchez, currently playing for Sevilla. Can play higher up as well, so he's down as a right winger or right back. So you'd say right wing back is almost the perfect position for him. He's been dubbed as the Semedo replacement. A lot of noise about this one, predominantly from Italy to start with, because Napoli are a team incredibly interested in him. It's thought that they've got an agreement with the player himself, but can't find an agreement with Sevilla as of yet. Wolves are said to have entered the race and have an agreement with Sevilla, but not with the player. As far as I'm aware at the moment, still very early days. Wolves have other targets in mind for the right wing back position. Sanchez is a player that they have an interest in, but not an active interest as such that they've put any bids in as of yet. But we will talk about him nonetheless, because Joe, this sounds to me at the moment, it could be similar to the Pubel deal. It's almost as if these Spanish wing backs are cursed and they can't join Wolves. But I have no doubt his agent is playing a part in this to try and maybe broker the best deal for him to join Wolves, or to obviously get Napoli to sort of get a little bit more money to one side. But again, what are your thoughts on this deal so far?
I think he's an interesting player on the basis that he's not just a wing back, similar to Rodrigo Gomez. I think there's there's more than just a wing back in there. I think during the under-21s this summer for Spain, he played in front of Mark Pubel as a winger,
Yeah,
effectively, ironically. So Atletico Madrid might be getting 2-for-1 if they get on the phone to George Mendes. But I think it's a really interesting option. I do not have concerns, but I do wonder if we were to sign him and our starting wing backs were Müller-Woller and Sanchez. That's a very forward-thinking kind of pair of options at wing back, which the wing backs, that's primarily in my eyes what they're there for. But I think if they're playing next to, no offense to Matt Doherty, a relatively aging Matt Doherty and Totti Gomez, I do wonder is Agbedu enough to kind of cover some marauding wing backs on both sides. I'm sure Vitor's got that sorted if that is the plan. But that's just a question I have in my head of what that looks like, because that they are, whilst Müller-Woller is better defensively, he is quite attacking minded in terms of how he's played in Holland. So I wonder what that looks like. I think with Juanlu Sanchez, he's an attacking right wing back. The scout card points him as a kind of bona fide attacking wing back. So it's a bit different with AZ Alkmaar for Müller-Woller. They are a better team in the context of the Eredivisie than Sevilla were last season. Sevilla were absolutely dog shit last season,
yeah,
and he was still, you can see from the stats, he was kind of flying up the wing, left, right, and centre. Albeit he was playing as a winger at times as well. So I think it's an interesting one. He's at the right age. I think it screams we sign him in 2025, and in 2027 he leaves for silly money again, which I'm sure Fosun would be on board with, and I'm sure George Mendes is involved as well. But I think it's I do have the concern on the homegrown quota, which you've mentioned as well. I do have a concern on the age profile of him and Müller-Woller. I think Müller-Woller's 23 and Sanchez is 21, so
yeah,
there's a lot of youth there, which is fine. But I do think we need some experience in this squad. I think if you look across that back three, you can probably put Totti Gomez in the experience bracket now to a degree, but Matt Doherty and Agbedu. But really, if you look further up the pitch, there isn't a great deal of, even Andre and Joe Gomez are still young players. Strand Larsen's
yeah,
still a relatively young player. John Arias, I suppose, brings that, but I think that the combination of homegrown and experience playing in England, I think we have none of that beyond Matt Doherty, really. Which I think is a bit of a strange one to be in. But I am very much of the impression if the club are happy with it, let's go with it and let's see how it works out. But they're paid the big bucks to make it work. So I
yeah.
think it'd be a very interesting option.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the homegrown, the experience. I don't think playing in the Premier League is the be all and end all, like I mentioned before on podcasts and on videos. But I mean, if you look at outfield players other than Doc, I think João Gomez has got the most Premier League experience out of the rest of that 11,
And I do
which is
think,
mad
though,
to think,
I
really.
do think constantly reading this, they've not played in the Premier League.
Yeah, I
I
think
have this
Agbedu
conversation.
proved that anyway. Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of players have come in
it
and proved
means
that.
next to nothing. I have this conversation about Fabio Silva all the time, where you see what Fabio Silva's done in other leagues, and to a degree, he's done it in the Premier League. If you look at the minutes that he's played and the returns that he's made off the back of that, there's an argument to say he's been quite successful when he has played for us, and I will die on that hill. The This argument that he's gone to Spain and played for Las Palmas and it's different than playing the Premier League. It's not. We've seen players come to the Premier League and struggle after playing in a so-called lesser league. You see it every single season. So I don't think Premier League experience is that important. But I think playing in the Championship, playing in England, understanding the game, understanding the fans, understanding there's a big pressure in England to kind of run your legs off, which I think is great, and that's why everyone loves English football. But to appreciate what the fans want, the likes of Andre Joe Gomez get that. But when you get a Gonzalo Guedes or a Sarabia or a Hwang that people suddenly take a distaste to because they're not running 40k a game, then I think having a player in the squad or a couple of players in the squad that understand that can help that.
Yeah,
Matt Doherty is probably going to be our captain, I think, off the back of this pre-season. He's not a shouter. He's not someone who's going to bollock somebody for not running their legs off. And I think we could do with I don't want to say Connor Cody, but a Connor Cody-like character in the squad who can bring that understanding. I don't think it's critical, but I think it could potentially be handy.
Yeah, no, I agree. And very quickly, I mean, I would have flagged up Juanlu Sanchez's scout card, like Joe alluded to. Very attacking, very similar to Müller-Woller in terms of his archetype fit, decent amount of accelerations, touches in the box as well. And I think he's pretty well built in terms of height as well. Quite similar to Pupil Joe. I think he's
Yeah,
above
yeah,
6 foot,
yeah.
he's like
He's
6'1", is he?
6 foot plus. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it ticks a lot of boxes, I think, for Wolves. So, like I said, for me at the moment, very early days on this one. And plus, he's with the squad today with Sevilla, sorry, for their friendly against Marseille. They've got another sort of pre-season exhibition match on Monday, and it's reported in Spain that more than likely he's going to be with the squad then as well. So it wouldn't be until early to middle of next week before we see the conclusion of this deal and saga anyway, I don't think. Joe, we've had even more speculation about Jurgen Strand Larsen. There's been a few rumours that he's been touted as a potential replacement for Alexander Isak. Liam Keane reported on it this time last week. Craig Hope from the Mail, who's pretty hot on Newcastle stuff, reported on it yesterday or the day before. And then we had another story on it today. The story today says that Wolves value Jurgen at around £65 million. Again, it's early days because I suppose it looks pretty likely that Alexander Isak is going to leave Newcastle in some capacity, more than likely to Liverpool. Looks like it's going to be an absolutely huge fee. 65 million, in your opinion, is that fair? I mean, in my opinion, I think Jurgen's going to stay, regardless. I think, especially with Norwegian players coming in and Fair Lopez, who Jurgen's pretty close to coming in, I think that helps our cause a little bit. But yeah, in terms of valuation for Jurgen, do you think that's about in the right area?
Yeah, I do. If I'm honest, I'm the same as you. I don't see him going, but I think if someone tries to sign you centre forward that you've signed a month ago for 25 million quid, and someone offers 65 million quid a month or so, 3 months later, you take it. That's
Yeah.
that. I don't necessarily think Jurgen Strand Larsen is a 65 million pound centre forward, and that I've sat on here for a year praising him how much how much he's done for us, and I do think he'll continue to provide what we want to provide next season. But I do think 65 million quid is a lot of money for him in the grand scheme of things. That there are limitations to his game. I don't see him as a direct replacement for Alexander Isak at all, but he really fits our system. I think the Müller-Woller coming in, for Lopez coming in, like you say, the connection with those, I would like to think will have some kind of bearing on it. I do foresee Isak leaving Newcastle. I don't see it happening until late in the window. So the advantage would be if Strand Larsen was to, I do think, in fairness, if someone comes with 65 million quid and they're playing the Champions League, which I believe Newcastle are next season,
Yeah.
I do believe Strand Larsen would go. I think he'd be daft not to, if I'm completely honest, because they'd offer him stupid money, because they've got to fill a gap from Isak. Albeit, I think there'll be other players that are ahead of Strand Larsen in terms of who Newcastle are after. I think Šeško. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a massive fan of Benjamin Šeško. I think he's living off Football Manager hype, if I'm honest with you. But if you were to spend 65 million quid on either of them, I'd personally spend it on Jurgen Strand Larsen. But it seems like Newcastle are going in hard for Šeško. So yeah, I think it's a hard. I think it'd be hard for us to turn it down, albeit if we were to sell him and it's towards the end of the window, I'd like to think they'd have someone lined up as a direct replacement. And to be honest, I would back the club to do that, because I think that it does seem to me, at least, they have learned some lessons in terms of replacements and kind of timings. So, do I foresee it happening? No. Would I be okay personally with 65 million quid? Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same. But I think the main concern for a lot of people is, I think everyone would probably broker a deal for 65 million, but it is how quick will they get a replacement, and will they get a replacement in? Because I think the issue is they come in on deadline day with 65 million. You're like, shit, we're in a bit of a situation here. Will you last for 6 months or 3 or 4 months? Sorry, with Sasha Clyde's leading the line, you probably
there's a lad played for Las Palmas last season up front. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Number 9.
I'm hearing so many conflicting things. Like somebody told me yesterday that they're planning on trying to keep Fabio. Like I said to you before, I think I said on this podcast, I said he would have to sign a new deal before summer for me, before the end of the window for me to even consider. I would love
Yeah,
Fabio to stay, but I think
yeah.
there's so many reasons why he probably needs to move on. But yeah, but then again, like when I was at the Warsaw game, he was sat with the squad, whereas Enzo and Mosquera were sat behind me completely separately. It
I,
just
I
doesn't.
think
I don't really
uh,
get that.
I do think there's a degree, but I'll be very, very, very surprised if Fabio Silva stays. Whether that's he signs a contract extension and then loans out for the season with an obligation next season. 'Cause that's the only way you can do it. That's possible, I would say.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think there's a too much water under the bridge with Wolves and Fabio Silva for that to remain a positive. And I think Vitor's obviously worked on him. I do sometimes question what Fabio's doing on social media a lot of the time with his cryptic posts and kind of odd things that he puts on there. He just strikes me generally as quite an odd bloke anyway, to be honest with you. But I think his heart's in the right place. Whenever he's pulled a Wolf shirt on, for me, he's always he's always given it what he can. And I think there's been other players in a Wolf shirt that haven't done that in that time. So
I don't think he's ever shown
um,
a level of laziness when he's played for
no,
Wolves. I think he's
no,
moving a
there
lot.
was a time really early on when he was replacing Raul Jimenez where it was kind of the opposite. He was just chucking himself into tackles and running
Yeah,
around. There was no real sense to it. But I think when you watch what he did at PSV and at Las Palmas in particular, because when I watched him for Rangers, he was dog shit.
he was awful. Yeah.
Um, and I do think there's a degree of he does maybe switch it on and off. I do think there's a degree where he's if I was playing for Rangers, I'd be less arsed myself, to be honest with you. But I think it's an absolute nailed on certainty that he leaves, and if he goes to sign for Roma, he'll score 15 goals in Serie A next season. It's just absolutely guaranteed.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Fabio. But yeah, I think the dubious side of Wolves fans will be how they're going to replace him because Jorgen's probably struggled really to replace Raul after his injury, and Strand Larsen's come in and done the business and sort of filled that void. So I think that is probably the reservation that Wolves fans do have. But Joe, we did see another link as well yesterday. Robert Renan, left-footed centre back, who had been linked to Wolves before as well, has played under Vitor Pereira, I think, on two separate occasions, very briefly at Corinthians and Al Shabab as well last season. This makes a lot of sense. I think it ticks a lot of boxes for Vitor. He wants a left-footed centre-back to be backup or at least compete with Totti Gomez. Brazilian. So again, I mean, you throw the homegrown thing into question again a little bit, but I think this is a player that no doubt Vitor would have an interest in.
Yeah, I think there's legs in this. To be honest, I think he's gonna be moving on somewhere this summer because he wants game time. I think left-footed centre back, potential Totti Gomez replacement or backup. I think he's a replacement for Totti Gomez. I'm sorry, Totti, I love you, mate, but you're talking a different level of player. You're talking a different kind of player. I think he fits in with the Vitor Pereira system. He knows the Vitor Pereira system. I think part of the problem at the moment is recruitment and getting players in on time to kind of offer something early in the season. I think Robert
Yeah.
Renan can do that from day one. He knows the system. I think I'd be really interested to see him next to Agbadou. In the same way as I enjoy seeing Totti Gomez next to Agbadou because I think they'll bring the best out of each other. They both step out the defence with the ball. I would say Robert Renan is more confident on the ball than Totti Gomez. I think I'd be more comfortable with Robert Renan stepping out of defence with the ball than I would be with Totti Gomez doing it. Which is, that's not a slight on him at all because I think he's been excellent for definitely the last 18 months for us. But yeah, I think it'd be a really interesting option, really interesting signing. A player the manager knows, a player that will be familiar with João Gomez and Andre, and we're obviously building up this Brazilian contingent. So I think it'd be a really interesting signing, yeah.
Yeah, he's meant to be going back to Brazil on loan for 18 months, and that apparently is now completely fallen apart because of Wolves reigniting their
I think he
interest.
was linked with Bahia, wasn't he? And I think
Yeah,
that's a I can no, I watch a lot of the Brazilian league. Shout out Dean Marsden. The he's not of the of the level that should be playing for Bahia in the Brazilian league. There's more to him than that. I'm surprised there's not more European teams in for him, but I don't know how much the Russian link is putting off clubs.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know how that works. It'll be interesting to see if Wolves do move forward with this, how they would broker a deal. Because I mean, 18-month loan is quite a long time as well.
Yeah, I don't know if 18-month loans are a thing in Europe generally.
Europe,
Anyway, I'm sure there's some form
more of a
of,
South
don't
American
quote me on
thing.
it. Yeah, I think it's a South American thing because it saves them paying the money. But yeah, I think it'd be a great sign. I think again, furthering on to my issue of homegrown players and older players and leaders, I don't think he's one of those. But get him in.
Definitely. We'll finish off very quickly with some questions for a couple of minutes. I mean, one completely away from transfers. Gully, Molyneux Musings. Who's the most famous person to have visited your accounts, lads? Should we sign them? I did this thing. This was like a Twitter AI thing. And I got Dr. Benji, the football manager YouTuber. And I've got to say, I was extremely underwhelmed. He wasn't happy with that, by the way. But I don't actually think it tracks who visits your profile, to be honest.
To be honest, I haven't done it as I'm not a weirdo. So
You probably
I
had
didn't.
Dave as a party mate, that's why.
Probably, yeah, probably. But
I'm
probably
joking.
Molyneux Musing's probably the most
Yeah,
famous person to
yeah.
view my profile.
Stone Cold Strand Larsen, realistic number of signings before the City game and then before the window shut. So obviously the City game is 2 weeks tomorrow.
2 weeks tomorrow, 5:30.
I think 3 signings.
Not including signings to date, I assume.
No. So Müller-Woller will be 1 and then another 2, I reckon.
Wolfe, right back, midfielder,
Yeah.
3.
Or if not midfielder, left centre back.
Robert Renan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
3.
then before the window shuts, 5.
Another 2. Yeah. With 12 players to leave.
If someone asked us that question yesterday, I think, and we mentioned 3 to 5, I think people would have snapped out. Would have gone absolutely ballistic. So
Yeah, I think we've said from the start. Yeah, after Arias, we were looking at 5, and I think Liam Keane said 4. They're looking at 4. Obviously, that's notwithstanding players that will probably go. So if you lose Fabio, Gedge, so we've lost Doyle and Troy Ray. We've lost Semedo, Aït-Nouri, and Cunha. I think that's it. So we're still significantly down, even if we sign 5. So it's yeah, I think we've trimmed the squad well. I don't think we're in a bad position if we do fulfil those numbers, but it's a big if.
Yeah, someone had asked as well. I can't quite find who asked the question. Someone had asked out of those players. Liam Keane had said was still after a left wing back, right wing back, central midfielder, and forward. How many of those do we think we're getting? I think we'll get all 4.
Yeah.
But I think forward, like you said, will depend on Fabio's situation and or if Hwang or Gedge move on.
Yeah.
But I think we'll get probably all 4. And I think Wolves will have to trim the squad anyway. I mean, we've mentioned the homegrown thing so many times. I'll have to trim the squad. So I think there might be 1 or 2 surprises in regards to people going out on loan.
Yeah.
I think Sasha probably still isn't quite favoured unless they're just taking it slow, bringing him back into the team. I think he could still go out on loan. I think, like you said, Hugo, Rodrigo, or Kiana, one of those 3, I think, could still go out on loan.
Do we think Santi Buena's hanging around?
I actually thought, I think he will, but
I hope so.
I think he will, but again, it's a big year for players like him. But he will get the opportunity when AFCON comes around anyway. You would assume.
Yeah, when Matt Doxey goes off to AFCON.
Yeah, for Ghana. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, but he will get that opportunity anyway. But World Cup year, there's going to be players knocking on the door. They want to get
100%.
and
100%.
There was one other question that I saw, if I can find it again, that I liked. A goalkeeper situation. Again, I saw a few people mention this about going mad that we weren't looking to improve on Sarr. But again, I genuinely still think Sarr has been okay since Vitor came in. But it was Ben Golding. Do you think we need to improve the goalkeeper situation? Also, any homegrown targets, again, which we spoke about. But I think Dan Bentley didn't cover himself in glory on Wednesday. Joe, I think Sam Johnston will probably move on. Burnley, for me, looks a real obvious place that he may move to at the moment. It'd be interesting to see if obviously they replace Sam Johnston and go with another goalkeeper to have 4 goalkeepers again, which would be quite daft maybe, I don't know. But in your eyes, goalkeeper situation, I mean, maybe an under-21 goalkeeper with lots of promise could be the option there. Don't have to
Um,
register them. Maybe it'd be a long-term project.
Dan Bentley's gash, so we're not
Yeah,
even going to touch on him. Sorry, Dan, if you're listening, mate.
yeah. I
But
suppose Tom
t-
King's on AFCON duty as well, isn't he?
Tom King, yeah,
Yeah,
what a bloke, what a
yeah.
bloke. Yeah, so what I think will happen is Johnston will go, Bentley will go. Is my genuine belief. I think Bentley will leave, whether it's on loan or otherwise, despite the Liam Keane powder puff piece on all the how he manages fines in the team.
I didn't actually read that. I paid for their subscription. I didn't even read that one.
The fact that you've admitted that on a podcast is that's going to get clipped up and sent back out. One, I would say one of Tom King or Dan Bentley goes. I don't know how long the Tom King experiment can go on without playing any football
Is it an experiment?
whatsoever.
I don't know.
I don't know if he's
Who would take him though at this point?
I'm not sure if he's money laundering, if he's got something else going on, because he doesn't play football and he's a professional footballer. He plays more for Wales than he does for Wolves.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me if Johnston went. Two of those three will go, I believe, because 4 goalkeepers is crazy when there's one nailed on starter. And I've seen one thing I found interesting was that Sunderland have signed a keeper. Despite having Patterson, and I don't mind Patterson as a goalkeeper. So I think there are goalkeepers out there that can challenge Sarr in the event that we say every year that Jose Sarr is going to leave, and then every year he doesn't. And I think this is the first summer that I don't think he will leave. So I think he seems settled with Vitor Pereira. So I think a goalkeeper to offer some competition, he's going to have to be English, given the he's going to have to be homegrown at the very least. He's going to have to offer some form of support to the squad. But I really, really, really don't want to see Dan Bentley playing a Wolves shirt anymore. He's not a Premier League goalkeeper. He's a decent Championship level goalkeeper that needs to play football the way they play football in the Championship. He's just not cut out for it.
No.
Some of the goals, like I said on Wednesday, were just really, really, really bad. So I really don't want to see him playing for.
I had a few comments of Ramsdale. Would you have taken him?
No, it's wank.
No.
Is it he's not of the level of Jose Sarr, and for the level that the money that we would pay to have him, I think the money that Newcastle will end up paying for him is just not. It's just not. I think we signed Jose Sarr for £5 million, and we would have been signing Aaron Ramsdale for 25. So
on loan, you would have paid £5 million for him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't know if he's gone on loan to Newcastle with a view to an obligation next summer.
They've got an option. It's an option, I think.
Yeah, and that'll be 25, £30 million. He's just not. He's not that level of goalkeeper, and you'd be paying him £100,000 a week.
Especially with the way Wolves are working transfer wise, you can't warrant spending that much.
No,
on a player that's not necessarily going to be number one.
If you're restructuring your wage structure and you're bringing in someone who's not even defined to be a first choice goalkeeper on £100,000 a week, it's just not a good move at all.
Well, there you go, Joe. I appreciate everyone jumping in, sending us some questions. Hopefully, like I say, hopefully we can do this weekly now. We've done 2. And it sounds and seems like the transfer news is heating up as well. So I appreciate you jumping on once again. Joe, where can people find you if they wish?
Yeah, pleasure. At Concept Scouting on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days.
Brilliant. And I think you're going to play football now, are you?
I am indeed.
Attempt to play football?
I am attempt to be in the opposite.
Warming up for the Content Creation Cup, mate.
Exactly. Going to just go and sit in defence for another half an hour like we did last year.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually playing later, but I'm in goal. I will not be playing in goal at Compton. So there you go. And then off to Girona Sunday. So looking forward to it as always.
Enjoy, mate. Enjoy.
Thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. But until next week, fingers crossed we see plenty more players come through the door and holding that shirt up. And we'll catch you on the next one.